A year after James Smith and Emily Johnson plagiarized Alice's thesis, they met again at a class reunion. The senior organizing the gathering raised his glass to congratulate Emily on being named an outstanding graduate. Alice maintained a composed expression as she sipped her cocktail, but Emily's face turned almost green with anger. Her boyfriend stared intently at Alice. Under the alternating glares from her ex and the unfortunate classmate, the food in front of Alice became unappetizing. She couldn't continue the meal and picked up her phone, ready to leave.
Alice, long time no see. Shall we have a drink?
Alice ignored him, pretending not to hear, and turned to the senior.
I have something to attend to, so I'll head out first. I'll transfer the money for the gathering to you later.
Don't leave, Alice. The party has just started.
James, reeking of alcohol, grabbed Alice's hand.
Don't leave, Alice.
Emily also came over.
Yes, Alice, why are you leaving so soon? Are you upset because I was named an outstanding graduate?
Emily sneered.
I'm just bringing honor to our school. You wouldn't be jealous of me, would you?
Of course, I'm happy for you. If our advisor knew you got the Outstanding Graduate Award by taking my direct PhD opportunity, he would be thrilled.
What do you mean, Alice? Do you have any proof?
Emily didn't expect the usually timid Alice to expose her in front of everyone. She was so furious she wanted to hit Alice, but Alice was taller and easily pushed her away. Alice walked straight out of the private room, Emily's sharp voice trailing behind her.
Alice, my application files are all here. If you slander me, I'll have my dad get a lawyer to sue you.
Alice heard the sound of paper being thrown, but it missed her and fell to the ground. A familiar male voice spoke up.
You should first figure out how many elements are in the RNG model. You even got that wrong on your application.
Of course, I'm happy for you. If our advisor knew you got the Outstanding Graduate Award by taking my direct PhD opportunity, he would be thrilled.
What do you mean, Alice? Do you have any proof?
Emily didn't expect the usually timid Alice to expose her in front of everyone. She was so furious she wanted to hit Alice, but Alice was taller and easily pushed her away. Alice walked straight out of the private room, Emily's sharp voice trailing behind her.
Alice, my application files are all here. If you slander me, I'll have my dad get a lawyer to sue you.
Alice heard the sound of paper being thrown, but it missed her and fell to the ground. A familiar male voice then said,
You should first figure out how many elements are in the RNG model. You even got that wrong on your application.
Back in my less than 10 square meter rental room, my phone buzzed with a bank fee deduction message. The monthly service fee was deducted, and I was $2 poorer. I gritted my teeth in frustration. All my savings were being eaten up by these unscrupulous service providers. I dialed my mom's number, planning to give her the usual call to let her know I was safe.
How was the class reunion today? Did you meet anyone suitable?
No, it's not that easy to meet someone suitable.
If it weren't for my mom insisting, I wouldn't have wanted to attend that so-called class reunion at all.
It's not that you didn't meet anyone, it's that you weren't trying. You're not getting any younger. In 2 years, you'll be 30.
Mom, that's my lunar age. I just turned 27.
Lunar age, solar age, whatever. Your cousin is about to have her second child. What will people think of our family?
Then came the usual nagging, which I had heard so many times my ears were practically calloused. I put the phone on speaker and set it aside, opening a web page to check the status of my PhD application submitted 2 months ago. The status was still stuck at school review, with no progress. At this rate, I was likely to be rejected.
Do you have time tomorrow at noon? Aunt Wang has set you up with someone.
Mom, I don't want to go on a blind date.
Aunt Wang is doing this out of respect for your dad and me. Otherwise, who would care about you? You must go. If you don't, come back home.
I closed the application page and wearily shut my eyes.
Fine, I got it.
Here I was, a 28-year-old single woman. Because of my poor judgment, my good days ended the year I graduated from my master's program. I was recommended for a PhD, and with one more core publication, I could have gone straight to a PhD program. But because my computer broke, my then-boyfriend James Smith kindly lent me his computer. He easily stole the thesis I had painstakingly written over a year, leaving me with no evidence. After struggling in the workforce for a year, I decided to pursue my PhD dream again. Lacking any research highlights, I quit my job and moved into a small rental room on the outskirts of the city, burying myself in hard work. To make ends meet, I found a part-time job at a cinema, working 4 hours a day for a monthly salary of only 1,900 yuan.
The manager sure can talk.
At the morning meeting, a colleague yawned behind me. I was also exhausted, pinching my left hand with my right, dark circles under my eyes. The cinema had morning, afternoon, and evening shifts. When I applied, only the morning shift was available. It had the lowest hourly wage and required a daily morning meeting.
Finally, let me introduce our new deputy manager.
The meeting was finally ending. I breathed a sigh of relief, clapping absent-mindedly. When I looked up, I was almost petrified. The person the secretary led in was none other than James Smith. My ex-boyfriend, who had stolen my thesis, was now my direct supervisor. It seemed my life had entered hard mode the moment my thesis was stolen. Alice scoffed and retorted sharply.
Of course, I'm happy for you. If our advisor knew you got the Outstanding Graduate Award by taking my direct PhD opportunity, he would be thrilled.
What do you mean, Alice? Do you have any proof?
Emily didn't expect the usually timid Alice to expose her in front of everyone. Furious, she wanted to hit Alice, but Alice was taller and easily pushed her away. Alice walked straight out of the private room, Emily's sharp voice trailing behind her.
Alice, my application files are all here. If you slander me, I'll have my dad get a lawyer to sue you.
Alice heard the sound of paper being thrown, but it missed her and fell to the ground. A familiar male voice interjected.
You should first figure out how many elements are in the RNG model. You even got that wrong on your application.
Alice couldn't hold back her frustration any longer.
Of course, I'm happy for you. If our advisor knew you got the Outstanding Graduate Award by taking my direct PhD opportunity, he would be thrilled.
What do you mean, Alice? Do you have any proof?
Emily didn't expect the usually timid Alice to expose her in front of everyone. Furious, she moved to hit Alice, but Alice, being taller, easily pushed her away and walked straight out of the private room.
Alice, my application files are all here. If you slander me, I'll have my dad get a lawyer to sue you.
Papers were thrown, missing Alice and falling to the ground. A familiar male voice intervened.
You should first figure out how many elements are in the RNG model. You even got that wrong on your application.
Alice couldn't hold back her frustration any longer.
Of course, I'm happy for you. If our advisor knew you got the Outstanding Graduate Award by taking my direct PhD opportunity, he would be thrilled.
What do you mean, Alice? Do you have any proof?
Emily didn't expect the usually timid Alice to expose her in front of everyone. She was so furious she wanted to lash out, but Alice was taller and easily pushed her away. Alice walked straight out of the private room, Emily's sharp voice trailing behind her.
Alice, my application files are all here. If you accuse me falsely, I'll have my dad get a lawyer to sue you.
Alice heard the sound of paper being thrown, but it missed her and fell to the ground. A familiar male voice chimed in.
You should first figure out how many elements are in the RNG model. You even got that wrong on your application.
The room was filled with a tense atmosphere. Alice couldn't believe the words that had just slipped from her mouth.
Of course, I'm happy for you. If our advisor knew you got the Outstanding Graduate Award by taking my direct PhD opportunity, he would be thrilled.
What do you mean, Alice? Do you have any proof?
Emily didn't expect the usually timid Alice to expose her in front of everyone. She tried to hit Alice, but Alice was taller and easily pushed her away. Alice walked straight out of the private room, Emily's sharp voice trailing behind her.
Alice, my application files are all here. If you slander me, I'll have my dad get a lawyer to sue you.
Alice heard the sound of paper being thrown, but it missed her and fell to the ground. A familiar male voice intervened.
You should first figure out how many elements are in the RNG model. You even got that wrong on your application.
The tension shifted to another scene, where Alice and Michael discussed her thesis.
Michael Davis, do you think I'm an idiot? Why can't I get my thesis right?
Alice spent almost every day with Michael, sharing her thesis struggles. What started as a complaint turned into a productive session.
Your points are valid, but they're too conservative. You could double your sample size, and your experimental design is a bit rough. Add a few more controls.
Alice pondered his suggestions, realizing their merit. 2 weeks later, she sent the revised thesis to her advisor. The waiting period was agonizing. To relax, Alice and Michael took a walk by the river. The water was clear, and couples strolled across the bridge.
Alice Brown, I like you. I've liked you for a long time, but you were with James Smith back then.
So you like chubby girls?
Don't talk about yourself like that, Alice. I like you for who you are inside.
That time at our dorm dinner, you looked down on me. I was so unconvinced that I made an effort to get to know you, and I realized how amazing you are.
So, would you consider?
Stop, Michael Davis. You're great, but we're not right for each other.
It wasn't that they weren't right for each other, it was just not the right time. Alice wanted to go abroad, and her dreams were more important to her at that moment. If 7 years with James Smith could end in betrayal, how could she trust a long-distance relationship wouldn't change? Alice went home and submitted the final batch of subtitle translations. The girl she worked with praised her.
You did an excellent job, sister. We rarely need to make any changes. No wonder Michael Davis recommended you.
Alice was stunned. Michael had been helping her behind the scenes. She suddenly felt an urge to talk to him. She picked up her phone to call him but saw a new post from him on her feed.
The scenery by the river is beautiful, but tonight's wind is chilling.
Alice's heart sank. She opened his post and saw a comment from a girl with a social media influencer profile picture.
When are you coming to hang out with us, senior? We're waiting for you for a barbecue by the river.
Alice snooped on the girl's profile. She was a college student who hadn't graduated yet, and it seemed like they got along well. Alice sighed, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. The waiting process for the interview was already nerve-wracking, and Alice's mom called every day urging her to get married, repeating the same lines over and over.
Men, no matter their age, can always marry someone younger, but it's not the same for women. If you keep being picky, you'll never find the right person.
Mom, is marriage the only thing in life? If I don't get married, does that make me a failure? No matter how much you push, I won't go back to get married. I've applied for a PhD abroad, and I won't get married until I finish my studies.
Mom was silent for a moment before suddenly exploding.
Do you really want to study? You're just trying to avoid marriage. You want to be a coward in life. You used to be so good at studying, and now what have you achieved? Don't expect me to support you any further. I don't agree.
I'm informing you, not asking for your permission.
With that, Alice hung up the phone. She received the interview notification for the next afternoon. Meanwhile, James Smith somehow got hold of her phone number.
Emily is too much of a diva. I can't stand her anymore. Alice, let's get back together.
Get back together? Do you think we just had a fight and can make up?
I admit I was distracted, but now I've realized that I still love you the most. Please forgive me.
In your dreams.
Alice, don't you think too highly of yourself? You've always overshadowed me. Let me tell you, I've already applied for a PhD abroad. Do you know Professor Nancy in the finance field? She only takes one student every few years, and I've made it to the interview.
Congratulations. I hope you succeed.
Alice, are you really not considering?
Alice didn't let him finish and hung up the phone. James also got an interview opportunity. He didn't have any real skills and must have used Alice's paper. The interview began, and when James saw Alice in the online meeting room, he was very surprised. As expected, James used Alice's paper. Professor Nancy asked him to elaborate on his ideas, and he spoke in grandiose but empty terms. After James finished, Alice asked him some tricky questions, none of which he could answer.
Professor, I must be honest with you. Mr. Smith was once my boyfriend, and this paper was written by me. He plagiarized my work.
Do you have any evidence to prove that Mr. Smith plagiarized your paper?
Professor, I don't have evidence, because I used Mr. Smith's computer to write the paper. But I can explain my thought process in detail.
Alice explained the conception of the paper to Professor Nancy and her motivation for writing it. After listening, Professor Nancy seemed thoughtful. At this moment, another person in the online meeting room spoke. It was Michael Davis.
I know Alice well and can vouch for her. I recommend her as Professor Nancy's student.
10 minutes later, Professor Nancy announced the interview results.
I choose Alice.
Michael Davis once again became Alice's senior. This time, directly. After my thesis was plagiarized, my life seemed to switch to hard mode. But the appearance of Michael Davis ended all my difficulties. The journey of studying abroad became less arduous, like a honeymoon trip.
At first, my mom would call frequently to scold me, until one time when I wasn't around, and Michael Davis answered the phone for me. I don't know what they talked about, but suddenly they became as close as long-lost relatives.
The older generation has many outdated views. It's not easy to change them. You need to be patient.
My patience was exhausted long ago.
You have me.
Michael Davis gently ruffled my hair, his gaze tender and determined.
I'll handle all the troubles behind you. You just need to move forward.
I was deeply moved but pretended to be annoyed.
What are you saying? I'm not a delicate little princess.
You've never been a little princess. You're a warrior who overcomes all obstacles.
Hearing this, I was stunned, my eyes already covered with a film of tears.
Michael Davis, how much luck did I use up to meet you?
If you think that way, then cherish me. Alice Brown, will you marry me?
He produced a delicate little box from somewhere, with a diamond ring inside, sparkling on the velvet. Looking at the shining ring, I realized that what I feared was never marriage, but not meeting the right person. The wedding was held in a small chapel, with only a few close friends and family. A few years later, we returned home after completing our studies, and many companies competed to hire me as a consultant. One company offered a very high salary to invite me. When I went to negotiate, I found that James Smith was also on the negotiation team.
At that moment, I really wanted that company to fire him.
After the work meeting, I returned home and nestled on the sofa, leaning against Michael Davis's shoulder.
Did you do it in the end?
What do you think?